Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Brave Zone. And today we're going to talk about how to stop procrastinating and how to find your drive. So, this webinar is based basically on the idea that in order to get what we want, we need to take some kind of action. A lot of us just like to learn. But when you don't take the right action, don't be surprised that you don't get the right results. This is all pretty basic. But today, I want to dive into procrastination and understand with you what triggers in our brain and our hearts that make us procrastinate, and how do we get back into action. So hopefully we can enjoy this webinar. Hopefully we'll have some time later to answer some of your questions. But first, let's talk a little bit about the problem. And the problem that we all know about procrastination, and we've all done it, right? So it's nothing strange or nothing weird about procrastination. It's not abnormal. It's definitely very normal. That's why we want to talk about it. It's the act of delaying important tasks, almost indefinitely sometimes for some people. And what happens is, and why this is important for us to tackle, because consistent procrastination actually increases your self doubt. It lowers your self confidence because you feel frustrated at yourself for for procrastinating and for not getting things done. And then you start to wonder, can I really do it? Am I really good enough? Etc. So all that head trash is coming from the fact that you were delaying what you know you should do anyway. On top of that, the self doubt also comes because the people around you start thinking of you in a negative way. They start nagging at you constantly because you're not getting things done, especially if some of the things you promised to get done is something for them. Okay, so they start feeling they're not good enough for you, or that you don't love them, or you don't care about them, etc. So all this amounts to certain ways of self-doubt. And of course, you may feel not motivated to take action. You feel like you've set a goal, but you don't know why you're not doing it. And or some of you, the reason why you're procrastinating is because you are unable to unblock yourself from distraction. You are unable to prioritize, and you're always constantly dealing with stuff. And when you measure the stuff that you're dealing with, there a lot of it actually doesn't really is not really important. It's just stuff. But for some reason you prioritize that over the really important things. So the reason you're here, you want to get stuff done and you want to feel good about yourself. And that's a great reason, isn't it? So let's start with the webinar by understanding some of these problems. And I'll give you a little bit more reasons why people procrastinate and how to overcome them. If time is money, then how much money have you wasted procrastinating? Again, many of us value learning, value thinking about things, value perfectionism. But in essence, we all know that if we don't take the right action, nothing in our lives, in our business will ever change. And all that is costing us money. For instance, if you have been procrastinating for 1 month, and let's say you work 160 hours a month, right? You are losing, and let's say you charge £100 per hour, you are losing 16,000 pounds of opportunity by procrastinating for 1 month. What if you procrastinate longer than that? What if you procrastinated 3 months, 6 months, 12 months? Look at all the money you are dumping down the toilet because you refuse to take the right action. You have your own reasons. Maybe the right action requires an investment. Maybe the right action is scary and you're afraid of failure. You know, one thing you can be sure of is the certainty of inaction. There's a lot of uncertainty with action, but there's definitely one thing for certain: when you are not taking action, is that things stay the same. You do not get the results you want or you desire, and possibly you lose money in the process. So you have to weigh between dealing with the uncertainty of action or living with the certainty of inaction. Okay. So a little bit about me. I have procrastinated as well in my life. I remember when I was in different positions in my career, there are times when you don't feel like getting out of bed. You feel like, okay, I just want to go back to sleep, curl up in under my blanket again. And that feeling of, it's almost, I feel like, I mean, for lack of a better word, depression, feeling sadness, feeling self-doubt, feeling frustration at life in general. I felt all that. So again, this is not an abnormal thing. But throughout the years, I've been able to study a little bit more about self-awareness, mindfulness, clarifying my goals, reshaping the way I do goals, and focusing on my strengths instead of the tasks that I'm not good at. And that has over time motivated me more to take the action. My role in my current role as a founder of the Brave Zone, I guide people to reignite your genuine strengths and remove the limits that block you from contributing at your very best. And some of those limits is the fact that you're not taking action fast enough, you're not taking the right action, or you're just a little bit distracted all over the place. Where I come from is 20 years of business achievement in developing economies where certainty is not always there. So that's taught me to become a despite person, not a because person. A despite person to me is someone who gets things done despite of the challenges around her, whereas a because person is someone who claims not to get things done because of, and here's my list of reasons. So I try to always be a despite person in whatever I do. 11 years as a leader in Fortune 500 companies has taught me that sometimes you have to do the things you don't like. Life is not about only following and doing the things you're passionate about. As an employee of a large company, a small screw in a big machine, we don't always get to decide the things or choose the things that we like to do. Targets are always being shifted up. And we had, because we were living and working in a very uncertain time in Southeast Asia at the time, with tsunamis, with bombs, with economic crisis, currency devaluation, we had to take on more work when our counterpart countries were in difficult times. I also had the privilege of starting my own companies for the last 12 years. I have two companies in Indonesia right now. That has even taught me even more that sometimes you don't get to do what you like. I was in a partnership, and I still am in a partnership, where for a long time I had to put aside my passion to be a coach. I had to even create a belief that I hate coaching and I don't like to be doing coaching because my role was a managing director. My role was to market other coaches to make them successful. And I had to put up with the fact that I may not be able to do what I want for years for the sake of saving or helping other people do what they're good at. So a lot of the way I deal with procrastination is just trudge on through, create a bigger dream, and just keep going. I lived and worked in multiple countries. My background is both in psychology as well as in business. The business part is self-taught because of the things that I've learned. The psychology is obtained through my own field of study, as well as the Master NLP Practitioner certification. So it helps me to understand that behind every business is a human being. No matter how big your goals are for your business, it is always prevented or empowered by the human being behind your business. And that's you, especially when we're talking about the people I love to deal with, which is self-employed service professionals. The business is typically all you. Can't really blame coronavirus, can't really blame the economy or the government. What you can blame is always how you decide to take the action in your business. So I love digging through both the psychology and the business strategies behind every business. I've had the privilege of marketing 6 different kinds of coaches when I was building up my coaching firm in Indonesia. And I realized that motivation comes in different forms for different people. Some people get motivated moving away from things, whereas other people get motivated thinking about a vision or a goal that they'd like to achieve. And some is a combination of both. Some is motivated thinking about what they would like to achieve for themselves, while others are quite a lot more altruistic and say they're motivated for what they can achieve for other people. So I think it's very important to also understand that you work in different ways, in as much as you have role models and people you look up to and people you read about. But at the same time, it is also very important to understand yourself and how you work. We are a different machine, all of us. I also dabble in book writing. I can't say any of my books are bestsellers, but what I do use them for is to give advanced tips and insight on certain topics. Like this one is about sales. It's not for basic salespeople. It's for people who want the finer distinctions to increase their conversion rate. It's available on Amazon. My direct, my coaching style, my communication style is direct and honest. I will tell you and I will ask you awkward questions that will get you to think differently. This is a consultant who is actually quite brilliant about in what he does. However, he had a lot of limiting beliefs that almost bind him and limit him from taking the action. He had just moved out of a big corporation, a big contract that he was serving, and now he, partly because of what happened with COVID-19, he didn't have as much work as before, and close to no work at all. So he buzzed me, and he joined a couple of my webinars and everything. But what I was really proud of with this guy was he allowed me to be direct and honest with him. He allowed me to dig through not his business, but himself and what's gotten him in the way. When I spoke to him, he did not have the right energy level to be successful. He spoke at a very low energy, not because he was an introvert or anything, but because he was exhausted, because he was burnt out, because he was frustrated. I get that. I sense that in his tone. And then I challenged him for 21 days to write content, which was something that I knew if he did that, he will get leads, he will get attention in the market. Looked at his LinkedIn, everything was so plain Jane, nothing amazing. And I said, I don't even know how you even got your client. You should be very lucky that you even got previous clients. It's amazing. Of course I was being cheeky, but he respected that 21 days and 21 days straight of content. Even before the 21 days finished, he was already asked to be a speaker in one of the events. He had a lot of people liking and engaging with his content. And all the most important part for me, he felt better about himself. And when you feel better about yourself, it is an energy that you can use to push forward your business. Again, we are self-employed. We are in a service business. We are selling us. So when I speak to people, when I speak to you, hopefully sometime, is I want to know what is the energy that you are projecting when you are marketing yourself, when you're putting yourself out there, when you're delivering your service. Are people inspired by you? Do people want more of you? Or is it something like, oh, I can't wait to turn him or her off? Okay. And this is so essential when you want to have a successful business, because your energy radiates. And when your energy is, self-doubt, self-frustration, laziness, everything like that, it's translated directly to your market. And I can give you the best marketing copy. I can work with you on the best marketing plan. You can hire the best digital marketing ever. But when somebody sees you and works with you and they don't resonate with your energy, or they're not inspired by your energy, the sustainability of your business is questionable. Okay, so this is why we want to work on this topic, because I want you to feel good about yourself and I want you to generate an energy that inspires people. Who wants to work with a professional service provider who can't even manage themselves, who always procrastinates? Nobody wants that. And you don't have to be a coach. It's not like I'm only talking to coaches. I'm talking to anyone who is a business owner. What kind of employees will you attract if you cannot discipline yourself to do what it takes to get things done? Don't complain that your employees are also procrastinators, because most likely you are too, and they learned it from you. So I'm glad you're in this call, just to make sure that we achieve our objectives together. Let's get clear about that dream life of yours. Let's achieve it faster and easier. Because when you get clear on your motivation and your drive, you will be able to have better self-control and produce things that needs to get done. So what we will cover today is some of the reasons why people procrastinate, and maybe you can find yourself in there, how to stop procrastinating, and how to maintain consistent action. I'll give you a real step-by-step method on this so that you can get something that you can implement right away. In essence, when we talk about procrastination, there's a few reasons that is based on fear. And that fear is what's preventing you to step out and taking action. A lot of people procrastinate because they fear failure, for instance. They fear criticism. They fear being judged. They fear not being good enough. They fear of not performing in the perfect manner that they've always imagined themselves to be. And that's all coming from this little tiny water pond bowl fish pond called the fear zone. The fear zone doesn't have a lot of room for you to grow in. So I want, through this webinar, through this sharing, I want to take you out of the fear zone into this brave zone, your brave zone, so that you can grab more opportunities and make a better life for yourself. So let's go on about why people procrastinate. There's a lot of reasons why people procrastinate, but before that, I want to share with you this generalized formula about getting things done. SC must be greater than D plus O. SC is self-control. If you think about how people get things done, anytime you want to stop procrastination, you want to take action, you need self-control. Self-control is the whole thing about getting your body to do something, getting your mind to focus, getting your emotions in the right path. That's self-control. You can't do anything without self-control. I want to take, for example, someone who is a vegetable, or someone who is completely physically disabled to the point that they cannot control any part of their body. They might go to the toilet without uncontrollably. They might say things that are very brash and rude without actually knowing. I mean, I remember I was learning a lot of these things in clinical psychology, which is obviously the major I studied in school. And there's self-control is something that is almost is very difficult to teach. Okay. And some people are born with a disability and an illness that makes them lose that self-control. So I want to go real extreme. Can you imagine a person who can't even control when they decide to go to the toilet? They can't even control the muscles in their limbs to enable them to stand up, to grab things. Everything is just all over the place. So how is that kind of person going to take action, physical action? Some of them, they can't control where their mind flies. How are those kind of people going to control themselves to take mental action, cognitive action? They can't. Because at the end of the day, self-control is what you need to take action. Now, this self-control must be bigger than anything that can demotivate you or whatever your perceived obstacles are. Things that demotivate you, there's a whole slide on this on the next slide, but I'll share a little bit. You know, the way you perceive your task, let's say you don't like the task that you have to do, it's demotivating, isn't it? And if that demotivation is bigger than your ability to control yourself, then you will not take the action. You'll just keep thinking about, oh, I don't like you doing that task. I'm just going to procrastinate again and again and again. Obstacles, perceived obstacles that you think is getting in your way. For instance, let's say you get a task and you're assigned to a task that you cannot fully control. You know, a lot of companies do this, right? They assign targets to their employees, but in order to get that thing done, they do not have the authority to get it done. So they assign targets, but they don't give their employees the authority that they need to reach that target, to do the action to reach that target. And that causes the employees to get demotivated. There's a perceived obstacle of authority, and that's the reason why that thing never gets done, because the obstacle, or at least the perceived obstacle, is bigger than what they can control, which is themselves. Okay, so again, SC must be bigger than D plus O. So when you think of this, the question is, how can you increase your self-control? For instance, if you're the type of person that is constantly thinking about things outside your control. I love this whole COVID thing. Every time you turn on BBC News, it's always about Boris Johnson, the parliament, and new rules. And, you know, and recently, as you know, Boris just announced certain lockdown lifting rules and criteria, and he was hugely criticized about not being clear. And you'll find people grumbling over it, you know, every time you talk to them. But if you think about it, those are things you cannot control. And a lot of times when crisis hits, whatever crisis is, and it affects the economy, affects our way of life, we tend to grumble and complain about things we cannot control. And before you know it, if you measure the focus that we have, if there is a measure meter, for instance, that can help you measure what you focus on every day, maybe you'll realize that 80% of what you're focusing on are things you cannot control. And only 20% is on things you can control. So my question is, if that's your pattern of thinking, how can that SC, the self-control, be increased? It can't. So one way to increase your self-control is really to focus on the things you can control. To assure yourself that there are plenty of things you can control despite the other things that you cannot. And it's also the self-control part is also must be driven by your drive. So one thing to increase your self-control is also to find that why, that that thing that you want to live for, that mission, that purpose, that exciting goal you and your family want to reach out to. And that's going to give you the drive and the motivation to pick yourself up and actually do something. So how do you lower? So the idea is to increase self-control and to lower demotivation and obstacles. So I want to take a look at some of the demotivation and obstacles first, just to make sure that we have examples that's relevant. Here's the 21 reasons why people procrastinate. And you're thinking, look at the slide. Oh my God, that's a lot. We're not going to spend an hour doing this, are we? Yes, we are, but in a selected way. I'm just going to select a few things. You can read the rest. You know, there's plenty of things about procrastination on Google anyway, but I just thought I'd lay this out. You know, for instance, if you have a task aversion, you know, one of the reasons you procrastinate, like I said before, is because you don't like the task. How do you remove that obstacle? Could be by outsourcing the task. Could be by delegating it to somebody else. Could be finding another way of doing and getting the goal without doing that certain task. Or it could be amplifying your goal so that you can pick yourself up and say, you know what, I'm going to just look at this task. I'm going to do it anyway, even though I don't like it, because it'll get me to what I want, which is a lot of times the way I handle task aversion is just suck it up and do it anyway. Perfectionism is another reason why people procrastinate, right? So the obstacle there and the demotivating factor is that fear of not being good enough. I haven't thought about it in a perfect way. So if I do it in an imperfect way, then I won't be perfect. Then it'll scatter my whole standard of perfectionism that I have about myself. This whole perfectionism. So how do you lower perfectionism is by realizing that perfectionism is a myth. Because even when you talk to perfectionists, it's so funny. They say, oh, I'm a perfectionist. You know, everything needs to be perfect. Oh, great. Then you ask them a simple question. Is there anything in life that is perfect? Right after they just said what they said to you, they will say, no, there's nothing in life that's perfect. So they just contradicted themselves in a matter of 2 seconds, right? On the one hand, they said, I'm afraid it's not going to be perfect. I want things to be perfect. I'm just going to prepare it so it's perfect. And then when you ask them, is there anything in this world that is perfect? They'll say, well, no. Okay. Think amongst yourselves, right? So perfectionism is another reason why people procrastinate. How do you lower that need for perfectionism? Is by realizing perfectionism is a myth, and by reaching for excellence instead of perfectionism, perhaps. Okay, there's many different ways. Mental exhaustion. Mental exhaustion is another good reason why people procrastinate, especially if they've got a lot of roles that they're playing in their household. Maybe you're a mom, you're a wife, you're a business owner, you're a friend, you're a sister, you're an auntie, you know, you're a colleague. There's a lot of roles that you're playing, a lot of pressure, or perhaps it's the pressure you've been giving yourself by not eating well, not sleeping well, and you're physically and mentally exhausted. Don't be surprised that procrastination creeps up easily on you because you're vulnerable. So the key to lowering the obstacle of mental exhaustion is really to put yourself first, to rest, to eat well, to force yourself to go to sleep at maybe 8:30 instead of 9 or 10 or 11 or midnight. Okay. Rewards being put too far. Another reason why people procrastinate. When I teach people how to create sales incentives, when I was coaching businesses back then, said sales incentives should be as frequent as possible. I mean, there's administrative issues if it's paid every day, obviously, but it must be monthly, not like yearly, not every 6 months, not at the end of the year when we're waiting for the annual bonus. But you'll be amazed that some companies don't get good, motivated salespeople, and their salespeople delay the sales process simply because the rewards are put a little bit too far. So they're disconnected with the reward. They cannot see it because it's too far. So how do you reduce that obstacle? Put it closer. Okay. Having too many options can make people procrastinate. If you even, especially if you're one of those people who love to analyze things, the more options is put in front of you, the more you can just, the more you feel overwhelmed by that decision. And that causes indecisiveness, causes mental overwhelm. Okay, so how do you lower that obstacle? Reduce the number of choices, eliminate the ones that don't even need to be discussed. There's a lot of reasons why people procrastinate. Many of things, perhaps even now, is a hedonistic delay. When you want to do something to achieve your goal, you got to do work. You want to enjoy the goal, but sometimes people don't want to do the work to get the goal. I know that sounds unrealistic, but you can imagine a lot of people feel that way. That's called hedonistic delay. You prefer to enjoy what you have now. I don't want to lose my pleasure now. Because if I have to work hard to get what I want, or if I have to change to get what I want, then I'm losing this pleasure. So how do you overcome hedonistic delay? How do you get people to let go of their existing pleasure so they could strive for their future dream? Number one is to create a dream that is so clear in their head and to make them dissatisfied with what their status quo is. So if you're experiencing hedonistic delay, for instance, think of how much you want your future dream, assuming you have a future dream. If you are experiencing procrastination and you don't have a future dream, that's the first place that we will start. You don't have a reason why you should take action. But let's say you do have a future dream, but you're just too lazy to get up and do it. I mean, you can paint a more clearer picture. And when you're trying to create a clearer picture of people's dreams, you got to understand that some people get more clear when they see pictures. So if they just talk about that dream, oh, I want to have more time with my family, I want to see my children grow up, I want to live healthier, it doesn't work. Most of us are visual. Perhaps it's by taking some pictures and creating a vision board. For some people, they do very well with auditory means of learning. And some people need to hear the sounds. I remember when I was creating my clear visualization of my dream, because I'm very auditory, I created a story and I narrated it back to me on a recording machine. And I put some backdrop music behind it, background music. And I was dreaming when I was listening to that recording of my own voice with background music about my future life. To me, that works a lot better than vision boards because I'm an auditory person. For kinesthetic people, for instance, if your dream is to have a car or to buy a certain car, go out and field test it, because kinesthetics will feel it deeper and closer if they do it. So perhaps just enjoying it. For instance, if your dream is to have more time with the family, have one afternoon where you're completely with the family, even though you can't do that most often enough, perhaps with all your business that you're doing. Just maybe get together with the family and just really stop and pause and enjoy that moment. And that's how you're going to get your future dream clear. On the other hand, think about how your existing life is dissatisfying. Perhaps because you're thinking about your future dream, perhaps this is not good enough, that is not good enough, you're frustrated that you haven't achieved your goals. Just keep thinking about that. So what you're actually doing is you're getting rid of the pleasure of being in the status quo because you want to get your future dream, your clear future dream. So that's just an idea of how you can get rid of hedonistic delay. Okay. Of course, there's also mental illness, like that causes people to procrastinate. There's mental states like depression, ADHD. There's also that interesting one, the thrill of doing things last minute. I love that because it's so funny sometimes. I have to admit, eh, I used to be the type of person that says, I am so good. I can do everything last minute. I don't need any, preparation. I can just off the cuff it. I used to be very proud of that as well. And I think it's also coming from the thrill of adventure that I have. I like an adventurous life. I like doing things that's a little bit weird. Yeah. But at the same time, it's kind of this, it's the article I was reading about this was, it's a disorder. It's the feeling that you always need a thrill. Okay. So don't be surprised that if that kind of person that loves the thrill of last minute also loves the thrill of anything else. Okay. And you just have to um to reflect, do I want a last minute life? What are you going to do in the last minute on your deathbed because you haven't prepped for anything else? You're just going to enjoy your life at the last minute? What if it was the last minute of your life? How would you like to live it? How would you like to remember it? And maybe that'll get you to think about, well, maybe there are certain things I love to do last minute, but maybe for the most part, in order for me to live my best life, I do need to plan and I do need to take the action. When you look at this list, what could be some of the reasons why you procrastinate? And it'd be very interesting if we had some time to chat later, just to understand a little bit more about how you're feeling about procrastination. So how do we stop procrastinating and maintain consistent action? Well, there's a few things. As I said before, it's all about creating clear and meaningful goals. I want to state there's two aspects of this goal setting. Number one is clear. Clear means, as I said before, using visual cues, auditory cues, kinesthetic cues if you need to. Whatever your learning style, you need to understand yourself. And this is what I do to help clients do that. To really understand how you work, right? So that when people say, "Oh, I have a vision board," I have a vision board, copy them, feel free to copy their strategy. What vision boards work for you? But sometimes copy editors, their strategies are very different than our personal strategies, and that's why it doesn't work. So clear. Clear, I also want to emphasize that what you see every day will become more clear than what you don't see every day. See, every day we see things clearly, the chaos all around us, the things that we have to do at work, the buzzing of the city that we live in, arguments around the house, perhaps. The life that we live is very clear because we see it every day. If your dream is not being seen every day, it will become less clear than the status quo. So, how do you clarify? How do you see your dreams frequently? Every day, perhaps, or even more frequently than just once a day, in order for it to be very clear. I remember when I was doing that audio recording of my dream, I used to play it 3 to 4 times a day because as I was driving, as I was walking, as I was just preparing myself for a client meeting, I play it again, play it again. Okay, so it became more clear than the stuff I was seeing every day. The second part of goal setting is meaningful. And we have to take into account that, when I work with clients on the psychological side of their lives, many people have goals that were inherited by their parents, from their parents, or put upon them by a social norm or a social value. Meaningful means your goal, if you want to have good goals for yourself, goals that you can act upon, it's got to be based on what you want to achieve, basically, because it's your life. I remember speaking to she is absolutely gorgeous. She had this jet black, thick hair, had natural curls and everything. She was at the time maybe about 22, 23, just fresh out of college. She looked like a model. And I befriended her because she was going out with a friend of mine. We talked, and then because she saw me as a kind of an older sister type of thing, um, she started asking me about career, about, okay, now I've graduated, I've interned here and there, how do I get a proper job? And then I noticed that we hung out for quite a while, and all the rest of the times where we hung out, she didn't used to have glasses. But this time she was wearing glasses. But sometimes she'd take them off, she'd put them back on. And then I said, by the way, I didn't know you wore glasses. And then she said, oh, yeah, today I just got an interview. I always wear glasses when I'm in an interview. And I said, why? Because I'm an accountant. I studied accounting and I want to get a job in accountancy. And I said, okay. If you know this girl, she's a party girl. She is a bit fluttery. She's a bit, she is the life of a party. Every time there's a conversation, she's to be the funniest. She'll be the most uplifting, right? She's not great at details. She forgets things, but she's got this charm. She's a great people person. She should be in PR, event management, or sales or something like that. She's going for an accountancy position. And in order for her to get that job, she felt that she needed to put glasses on to look smart. So I said, okay, why do you choose accountancy? I don't know you well enough, but I've seen you a couple of times. We've hung out. I don't think you're an accountant material, no offense. And she said, yeah, a lot of people say that, but my father wanted me to be an accountant. He was an accountant. Grandpa was an accountant as well. And because I'm the oldest, child, um, they wanted me to take accountancy. So I lived it. Right. Oh, by the way, she was also she also won a pageant, a beauty pageant, like a year ago. Um, and she also had a lot of followers and everything on the social media platforms that she had. So I asked her that awkward question. It's like, if you didn't have to obey your parents, what would you like to be? And as I suspected, her answers was around the people industry. She wanted to be some kind of a PR or something around sales, just like I told you, something around marketing, because she loved dealing with people. So one of the reasons, I don't know if she ever became an accountant. We lost touch after that, but I do know that she never became an accountant by the time that, on the period of time that I was dealing with her, or I was friends with her. But it's interesting, isn't it, that some of the goals that have been put upon us is actually not the goals that we would have created ourselves. And maybe that's why we procrastinate. And maybe that's why it's very important for those goals to be meaningful to us. So the first step to stopping procrastination is really being honest to yourself. If you say you want something, and those of you who have worked with me, you know that I will always ask you why. I will ask you to convince me why you want that goal, because I want to know if that's coming from a place of sincerity or that's just a goal that's been put upon you. The next step before, if you want to stop procrastinating, is to understand your reason for procrastinating. So that's why I flashed out the 21 reasons why people procrastinate, and you can Google for more. You've got to understand why you do it. Look at yourself in the mirror and understand you better. And this will help you progress things forward. The next thing is to create an action plan, obviously. This is where I want to achieve. This is what I need to do. And an action plan that is clear should be no more than 6 months in the future. Some people say, oh, we have to get a 5-year, 3-year action plan. Don't worry, after 3 months, you'll change everything. I mean, back in the business coaching days, we used to do action plans every 3 months because we know things change and we need to remain adaptable. So create an action plan, but also shield yourself with an anti-procrastination plan. Once you know why you procrastinate, as in step number 2, you're going to also create how to prevent yourself from procrastinating. So let's say one of the reasons you procrastinate is because you are mentally exhausted. As part of your action plan, I need to do this, 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 this. As part of your action plan must be eat healthy, sleep early. That's it. Exercise regularly, perhaps, right? Depending on why you're mentally exhausted. Okay, or delegate certain tasks so that I don't get mentally exhausted. So create an action plan, but also create an anti-procrastination action plan. To avoid task aversion, to make sure you do what you like and what you're good at, learn to leverage your weaknesses. Learn to leverage the things that you're not interested to do. My biggest story of procrastination is getting in the digital technology that I need to boost my marketing and my business. There's a lot of reasons why I didn't delegate it out. Money, belief that it actually could work. But for the most part, it was just the fear of wasting money. And I tried to do it myself. I tried to post ads myself on digital marketing. I tried to format my own website. I tried to market my own way. But I know that technology is my weakness. And I found myself mentally exhausted trying to do it myself because it was my weakness. And a lot of the people that I've spoken to, they say, oh, it's easy. Just look at this YouTube video and then they can tell you how to do it. This. So I did. I looked at the YouTube video. And I don't know if I don't have the right level of IQ or maybe I'm just too stupid for these things. Whatever they told me was easy for them was so difficult for me. Another field that I leverage regularly is financial investment. Not to say I close one eye and throw my money around and let other people manage it. I pick a financial advisor I believe, I get recommendations, I sit down and I have a chat with him. But after that trust is built, I tell him to invest my money in mutual funds or in stocks or whatever, and he manages that portfolio, not me. Because again, when I understand myself, I look at my wealth dynamics, I use certain assessments to understand my talents. Investing in the way I want to invest, for instance, stock picking or something, requires a certain personality. It's got to be a person who is not so reactive. It's got to be a person who loves research, who loves to wait just for the right moment and then take action and then invest and then pull out at the right moment as well. For me, I've taken classes, I've taken seminars on these things, I've tried to read books and all these kinds of things to learn. It never sticks. So all my hard-earned money used to just go down the drain because of bad investments. And each time I want to push myself to learn more or to investigate or to do research, I procrastinate. Why? I think it's because of task aversion. It is my weakness. It is not something, even though I've got clear goals about what I want to build, but in order to get there, there are certain tasks that is so different from my natural capabilities. So I've decided to leverage it out. So leverage your weaknesses. Instead of letting that get in the way, letting that become your biggest excuse, leverage it out. There's so many ways to work with people. Next, calendarize it. You've got an action plan, right? Put it into a calendar. The best action plans are calendarized. It's very interesting when I work with people on this. You've got a to-do list and then you've got your calendar, and these are two separate things. Let's say today is quite busy for me. I hosted a networking event in the morning. Now I've got a webinar. After this webinar, there's a few admin things I need to do to get things sorted. Today is going to be pretty jam-packed until about 4. Now, if I had a to-do list due today that was 14 items long, I'd be very disappointed in myself that I can't achieve it, because by 4 o'clock, my brain is like 75% already like tired. I'm ready to knock off at 5:30, have a drink and spend time with the family. But if I've got another 14 things to do, that just creates unrealistic expectations on me. But if, let's say, I don't just have a to-do list, but my to-do list has an estimated completion time to it. For instance, I don't know, a review this marketing asset that I want to throw out next week. And I think that'll be 30 minutes. So I can do that maybe between 4 to 4:30. Call up a friend or call up a strategic partner and discuss about this. That'll be about another 30 minutes. That's 4:30 to 5. Then I have to think, am I ready to knock off at 5, or do I want to do another half an hour thing at 5:30? Okay, I'll do another half an hour at 5:30. Let's see, what can I do? Oh, I want to revamp my website. Oh, wait a second, that's going to take more than 30 minutes. Do I really want to do that today? Should I really expect myself to do today? Because I have had a back-to-back meeting from morning all the way to 4 o'clock. Now I've sectioned another two 30-minute slots for all the other things. And now I've got another 30 minutes that I'm hoping I can revamp my entire website in 30 minutes. That's not completable. That is not realistic. When you start calendarizing the things you need to do, you start realizing how unrealistic you have probably planned. People tend to overestimate what they can do in 1 hour and underestimate what they can do in a month. So, calendarizing your action plan is very important. Share your action plan with your coach, your accountability coach, your friend, your mentor, your boss, whoever. Okay, sharing it creates accountability and also allows other people to question it and challenge it, especially if they know you. Celebrating small wins. Remember, one of the things that puts people off and creates procrastination is because the rewards of your action is so far away that you cannot see the rewards. This is the way to handle it. You celebrate small wins. You know, I celebrate when, so what I'm working on right now is a certain strategy for digital marketing. I'm creating my funnels and everything. If I wait until the funnel is done, I've got 100 leads a month, etc., to celebrate, that's going to be a long time. So how I do it is I chunk it. I say yay to myself. I have grab myself a nice drink, etc. I treat myself if I've done a certain assignment. My coach and I, we work on weekly assignments. If I've done that, I feel great about myself, pat myself on the back. More importantly, I celebrate every night. I celebrate every single night by writing a gratitude journal of all the things I'm grateful for the day. I've got a gratitude journal that I use. A friend of mine makes it because she's an illustrator. She's amazing. And it's not necessarily grateful for the things of the day, like the top 5 things. I've kind of graduated from all that. I wanted to do a different kind of gratitude journal. So her gratitude journal is all about different topics. So yesterday was about mistakes. What are some of the mistakes that I'm grateful for? I think today is about being with loved ones. What are some of the things I'm grateful for in my life about the subject of being with loved ones? You can work it out in a different way, but celebrating small wins is important, because one of the reasons why we procrastinate is because we are not rewarded frequently enough for the work that we do. And then we start wondering, why the heck am I doing this? So you got to let yourself feel that celebration. You need to understand your truths. And one of the life coaches that I work with, she uses me to tell her the truth. And I try to be respectful. Yes, sometimes I'm a bit direct. I don't mean to. It's because I love you, right? But it is, for her, for instance, the reason why she's not getting the results she needs in the business is because she's doing stuff. She's distracted by a lot of new ideas. And what I've done with her is I've created a list of the top 5 high impact activities that you must be focusing on every week. I've stopped trying to stop her from doing all this distracting stuff. And I said, I can't stop you. I'm not your mom, but you've got to turn to me every Sunday, the top 5 high impact activities. How much did you do of it last week? What were your results? If you have more time, go do other things if you want. That's not my problem, okay? and it's focused her on some things. She's invested a lot of money on different kinds of marketing. After working together, she's finally gotten clients with me. Okay, and it's not about how much money you spend, it's about how much result can you get. So she's quite happy with that because she's finally started getting clients since we worked together. So again, how much time and money are you wasting on procrastination? You know what you need to do. For whatever reason, you're afraid to do it. For whatever reason, you're delaying it. You're thinking, oh, I can do that later. If you do that for 1 month, you're wasting 16,000 pounds. If you do that for more, you can be wasting up to 192 pounds. If you think my figures are exaggerated, you know what? Cut them all by half. If you can save half the value by actually getting things done, by actually investing in the stuff that you need to get what you want, how much would that mean for you and your business? We've got a few minutes left. We've got about 10 minutes left. I'd love to open the chat right now. I'm looking at the chat. So feel free to chat with me about what are some of the challenges you have, what are some insights you've gotten out of this. I'd love to understand you and to answer your questions. And while you're doing that, I just want to offer you a complimentary 30-minute discovery call for anyone who wants to save time, money, and self-doubt, and understand a little bit more about what are some of the actions you can take in order for you to get closer to the life of your dreams. Just to help you, I'm going to pop in my website and the link on the chat so you can just click right away and book your Brave Discovery Zone now. In the meantime, I wait for your comments and questions on the chat button. Feel free to let me know what value did you get out of this webinar and what are still some questions that you have. There you go. That's your link. Don't know why that's not a live link. Let's try it again. Yep. So here's a question. What are your top tips for self-doubt? Really? Okay. Self-doubt is something, fortunately or unfortunately, a lot of people grow up in because nobody comes from a perfect family life. And for the most part, if you understand human psychology, most people come from a dysfunctional family and background, okay? It's not that hard to be a dysfunctional family. All you need is somebody who told you once that you're not good enough at something, that you're not valued enough. Oh, and then you grow up. I mean, even though your parents are amazing, but your friends started doing that to you. Or perhaps you have had some kind of professional disappointment that has made you feel less. The problem with self-doubt is that when you are experiencing self-doubt, I believe you're thinking too much about yourself. That's why you're self-doubt. So you got to understand, when you're a self-employed service professional, by default, by saying I'm a service professional, you're here to serve. My top tip for removing my self-doubt for myself is that I start thinking less of myself, less about me, and more of others. See, all of you have got some kind of talent that if you can contribute using it, if you can market it, if you can help more people with it, you can improve somebody's life. And you do some things better than most people. So when you surround yourself with self-doubt, it's like, I can't market myself before I'm completely confident in myself. You know, it's the other way around. Once you start helping people, you feel better about yourself. So my top tip for self-doubt is get into action, serve the people that you are supposed to serve or you want to serve, and don't be surprised that it actually comes back to you in self-confidence. You know, the person asking me this question, I know for sure you've attended a lot of my webinars. We've talked. You've given me the self-confidence to keep going with these webinars because of you and your comments telling me about how valued these are, how valuable these things are. Did I have self-doubt when I got in and say, oh, okay, I'm going to move to the UK. I'm going to teach UK people things. I'm going to teach people from a developed economy things, whereas I come from an emerging market. Did I have self-doubt? Absolutely. You know, I live in Bath. There's a lot of affluent people around here. Did I think that I could teach them something? Of course I had self-doubt. Sometimes you just have to say it's no longer about you, you know, especially if I don't know what age you are, but sometimes, you know, we've had enough of life about us. It's now about serving other people. And as I started doing all these webinars and I got good comments, my self-doubt disappeared. And I had bad comments as well, I'm sure. I can't remember, but let's say I did have bad comments. All I can say is there were lessons for me to be even better in serving other people. Great question. Yeah, love the idea of creating a vision that creates reality. Great. How do we know what's best for us to visualize the goals? See here. Okay. Neuro-linguistic programming, NLP. There is a topic called learning modalities. Okay, and there is a test. It is, I don't know if it's free or anything like that. It's a test that you answer a bunch of questions, and then basically you kind of know, they tell you that you're either a visual, auditory, kinesthetic, or auditory digital. Okay, so I'm just going to put in the chat, NLP, learning modalities. Feel free to Google it. And if there is a test still, I remember I took the test when I was studying NLP. I don't know if it's actually available on Google. Okay, but there's a test. If a test is too difficult for you to find or to access, just know that 80% of us is visual. The question is visual what? Is it visual auditory or visual kinesthetic? How do you best learn? You know, sometimes some people love to read books. That's how they learn. For me, I like to listen to audiobooks. That's how I retain information. For other people, they learn best not because somebody told them what to do, but because they did it together. So that's kinesthetic. Okay, so just learn about visual, auditory, and kinesthetic learning. Oops, there we go. Google that and you'll find a lot of things. Okay. 21 reasons why we procrastinate was very helpful, eye-opener indeed. Happy to hear that. Very good. I hope you also find why you procrastinate, because I think that's very important before we try to get any kind of solution. We have to understand where we stand. Again, I want to you know, encourage you to sign up for the Brave Discovery session, because I think it's also a great time for us to talk personally. I want to connect personally with you. It's hard enough to try to do business online, but if you click on that link or copy that link, and it will sort you out into a calendar scheduling software where you can book a half-an-hour session with me this week or next week, and that would be great. So we can talk more about your business. If you want to market yourself sharper and better and understand your niche, please feel free to have that discovery session as well. And I do have one of my top programs that people are really, really going after, and maybe because it's a lockdown, you know, you have time to actually think. It's what we call the Brave Marketing Program. And basically it helps you carve out your niche, because a lot of people, when I look at your business plan or I listen to how you describe your services, you're trying to serve everybody and your target market is too vague. Secondly, you don't have a clear avatar. You don't know who exactly you want to serve. And then when you're talking about your services, you're blabbing all over the place. You know, what I do is I help dedicated self-employed professionals to clarify and sharpen how they explain their message so that they can reach the business and life of their dreams a lot faster and better. I also help you sharpen your marketing plan, because many of you try to do strategies that other people have done successfully, but you need to understand not only your target market and what they need, but you need to understand you and your style. And sometimes understanding ourselves is very difficult when we're doing it ourselves. So I'll be your sparring partner in that Brave marketing process to help you get going. Remember, time is money. The more you delay, the more you're just here, I'm just going to learn, I'm going to learn. But sometimes what you need is more than learning. It's a different kind of action. So again, thank you very much for joining the webinar, and I hope to see you next time on the next webinar. Take care now.